Hi, good morning to one and all. Myself, Dr. D. Sudhakar, working as Professor and Head of Mechanical Department at Siddhartha Institute of Science and Technology, Puttur. Today, we are going to discuss about the properties of a molding sand. The molding sand should possess the following properties. So, in the last class, we have discussed about the what is the pattern, what is the pattern material, what are the different types of allowances, all those things we have discussed. And today, we are going to discuss about the what are the properties of a molding sand. The first property is the porosity, flowability, collapsibility, adhesiveness, cohesiveness or strength, the refractoriness. Now we are going to discuss about this all these properties one by one. First one is the porosity or permeability. What is meant by porosity or permeability? The porosity or permeability is the ability of the sand by which it allows the gases to pass through it easily. For example, while preparing this molding sand, you have to prepare, we are going to use a sand. After ramming the sand on top of this pattern or inside the mold, it is properly cured. And after that, we are going to remove the pattern from the mold and the mold cavity will be formed. So inside that mold cavity, we are going to pour the molten metals, high temperature molten metal. Whenever we pour this high temperature molten metal into the cavity, and it is going to this high temperature molten metal is going to interact with the mold walls. In these mold walls, it may have some humidity or some small water droplets. It is going to interact with these mold walls and it will be liberate the gases. So whatever the gases are produced inside this mold cavity, it should not be stay there only. It should come out from the mold cavity. So how it is going to come out from the mold cavity? Through this porosity or permeability property. Porosity means ability of the mold to allow the gases to pass through it. Means whatever the gases, whatever the fumes are generated during this casting process, all those gases, all those fumes must be come out from the walls of the mold with the property of this porosity or permeability. Suppose if it is low permeability or low porosity, what will happen? All these gases or fumes will be stay there only, and automatically it is not the and the mold cavity will not filled up by this molten metal completely. Automatically, the defected component will be come into the picture. So that is the meaning of porosity. So that finally the mold should have the molding sand should have this porosity or permeability property. Then flowability. Flowability means how easily you can this sand can be moved from one place to the other place. The ability of the molding sand to behave like a fluid when it is rammed is called flowability. So after placing this pattern into the cope or drag portion, we are going to place the molding sand. And we are going by means of this rammer and wooden mallet, we are going to apply the force on the molding sand. So during that time, what will happen? All the molding sand should flow all the into the nook and corner of the mold. It should not stay at a single place. Whenever you apply, it should easily go to the all the places of the all the corners of the mold. Then only it will be evenly distributed all over the mold. And if it should have good flowability, then only it will be move all the places. Otherwise, what will happen? It required more amount of strength or more amount of ramming force in order to move this molding sand to all the places. Then collapsibility. Collapsibility means the ability of the molding sand to collapse after solidification of the molten metal is called collapsibility. Collapsibility means breaking or breaking of the mold cavity, breaking of the mold after solidification. Means how easily you can break that mold and how easily you can taking out this mold cavity, mold components, casted components from the mold. So if it is very hard and it is very hard to break this mold, it will take more amount of time and the cost will also increases. So that if the collapsibility property is good, then automatically you can break that mold very easily. So you can take out the component from the mold. Then one more property is the adhesive property. Adhesiveness means how these sand particles are stick to the another body or the walls of the flask or cope or drag portion of the mold. Means how these sand particles get stick with the another body. Another body here is the molding pattern. Molding molds are like just a cope or drag or cheek portions. So whenever we are going to place this molding sand into the mold, and if you ram properly, then automatically what will happen, all these, because of this adhesive property, all this molding sand will stick to the walls of the coke and drag, so that it won't fall down easily. And that too, these sand particles must be stick to the metal patterns or wooden patterns also. So while removing these patterns, anyway, we are going to shake or wrap like that. We are going to remove, but initial time, these sand particles must have this adhesive property, and because of this adhesive property, these sand particles are going to stick to the walls of the cope or drag or cheek portion. At the same time, these molding sand, the sand particle will stick to the patterns also. Now, the one more property is the cohesive or strength. What is meant by cohesiveness? The ability of the sand particles to stick with each other, means within these particles, how these sand particles are stick to each other. One sand particles must be stick to the another sand particles. So if the cohesiveness property is there, then automatically all these sand particles all these particles are stick to one another. Finally, the strength of the mold will be increases. Otherwise, if you lift the scope or drag from one place to another place, automatically all the sand particles will be fall down, and finally you are not going to get a mold cavity also. So this cohesive property or strength is very much important for the molding sand. Then refractoriness. Refractoriness means ability to withstand to the higher temperature. Anyway, this molding sand should be withstand to the high temperature of the molten metal without fusing. Means in casting process, we are going to pour the molten metal with very high temperature. So it may be 1540, 16, let's say 1700, like that high temperature of molten metal, we are going to pour into the mold cavity. So whatever the molding sand are used in this sand casting process, this sand should be withstand to that high temperature. Otherwise, what will happen? It will, because of the high temperature, if it is having a less refractoriness, it will become melt. So it should not take place in the casting method. Sand molding, sand mold process, molding sand process, and it should be withstand to that high temperature also. Refractoriness means ability to withstand to the high molten temperatures without any melting. And now coming to the mold sand testing. So after preparing the mold, so we should test the